There are few games that mean more to me than the Fallout series. Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas are some of my favorite games of all time, with Fallout 3 in particular being a title that forever changed the way I looked at video games. Unfortunately, new Fallout games are few and far between these days. The last traditional numbered entry in the series was Fallout 4, and that was released 10 years ago. An entire decade. God knows Fallout 5 is probably still years and years and years away, so us fans of the zany post-apocalyptic vibes that the series is known for oftentimes need to look elsewhere to get our fix. That's why today I want to talk about Atomfall. I've been playing a lot of this delightfully weird AA game over the past week, and while obviously it in no way compares to the grand scale or sense of adventure that the Fallout franchise provides, I did find it to hit a lot of the same notes. Before I dive into my Atomfall experience though, just gotta give the usual spiel. Please be sure to give this video a like, and if you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to my channel. Every like and subscription really does mean the world to me, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys who watches. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's talk some Atomfall. Atomfall is an action survival game developed by Rebellion set in an alternative history of the 1960s in England. In this timeline, the wind-scale nuclear disasters turned a large chunk of the region into a radioactive quarantine zone where your character wakes up with no memory of anything. It's up to you to explore the region, make friends or enemies with the locals, and try to figure out what the hell happened to this land and how you can get the F out of there. The setup is simple, but creates a lot of intrigue as your character is immediately contacted via telephone by a mysterious entity called simply the Operator, who provides you with a very cryptic goal. Oberon must die. That's all I'm going to say about the story, as peeling back the layers of the plot is one of the best parts about this game and is best discovered by the player themselves. The biggest strength of the game, though, is its world. The Fallout inspiration I mentioned earlier goes further than just having a nuclear disaster at its core. It's most apparent by the wacky and diverse ensemble of characters that you will come across in the game's world. From horrifically corrupt police and military personnel, to slimy pastors, to an entire cult of soil-worshipping folks living out in the forest, there's no shortage of colorful characters in this game. And like any good Fallout-inspired title, Atomfall gives you full control over the fate of most of these people. Who you side with, who you backstab, who you kill, there are plenty of tough, thought-provoking decisions to make here. The characters and the dialogue that you have with them might not compare to the level of quality you would see from the Fallout franchise, but I still found many of the characters to be compelling and the dialogue to be well written and in many cases pretty damn funny. I don't want to overstate the Fallout comparisons too much here, because Atomfall does a couple of things so uniquely that it really helps it stand on its own two legs. For example, rather than a typical RPG quest system, Atomfall is centered around leads. You find leads from engaging in conversations with people or through reading notes that are conveniently strewn all over the land. All of this provides you with vital information that helps you further these leads. These leads, in case you haven't realized by now, act essentially as quests that you can follow until you eventually resolve the lead, aka complete the mission. It's a pretty obvious stand-in for a more traditional quest system, but it feels so much more organic than those systems typically do, and it adds greatly to the mystery aesthetic of the game. Similarly, rather than your standard RPG buy-sell item system, Atomfall utilizes a barter mechanic. You meet various merchants in the world, and rather than sell them items for cash, you can trade your items with the ones that they have in stock. Different NPCs like different things more than others though, so a grenade that might do very little for one person might be enough to get yourself a fancy new gun from someone else. These are small things that don't hugely change the gameplay experience or anything like that, but they help give Atomfall so much personality and make it feel like a much more organic experience than many other similar games. I will also say that I came away from Atomfall very impressed by it on a technical level. The world looks great. I'm a sucker for bright green rolling hills in my games, and Atomfall does this aesthetic better than most. The English countryside represented here might be terrifying, but it's also beautiful to look at. There are plenty of sights to take in here, and the game offers a quality photo mode option if you really want to dive into the sightseeing and photo capturing opportunities on display here. The game is also equally impressive on a technical level. It runs at an incredibly smooth 60 FPS, and I can't recall a single dip at all in my entire 14-hour playthrough. Similarly, I don't think I encountered one glitch during my time with it either. The Fallout series and Bethesda's other offerings are known for their myriad of bugs and glitches, so it's impressive to see a AA game inspired by some of their offerings excel in this department. Obviously, Atomfall is a much smaller game than any of Bethesda's RPGs, but there are still a lot of systems at play here, and I imagine lots of things operating in the background, so it was still very impressive to me for things to work so seamlessly throughout my entire playthrough. Definitely a breath of fresh air, especially in today's gaming landscape. Despite all this praise, Atomfall does have some warts though. The most obvious issue is that its combat, particularly its melee combat, feels really, really bad. I get that this is more of a survival game than the titles I've been comparing it to, so combat is less of a focus than in, say, the Fallout series, but man, do you feel weak for most of this game. Early on, I found myself running and avoiding battles as much as I could because I was constantly getting my ass kicked. Most melee weapons here are weak and ineffective and just feel awful to use. There is no weight or satisfaction behind any of your swings, no matter which kind of item you're using. Again, I understand that making your character feel weak and forcing the player to make tough decisions about engaging in or avoiding combat is probably part of the design here, but you would still like the melee combat to at least feel a bit better. Range combat is fairly basic and nothing to write home about, but it's leagues better than the melee offerings. I found my annoyances with combat became much less severe towards the end of my adventure, when I had stockpiled a decent amount of guns and ammo and didn't have to be so selective with my bullets. But it never really gets to the point where combat is actually fun. The other contributing factor to that is that the RPG and character building mechanics on display here are also pretty shallow. The crux of the system is that you can learn different perks for your character by finding training stimulants across the world. I enjoyed this method of leveling up because it puts even more of an emphasis on exploration, which is undoubtedly one of the best things about Atomfall, but the perks themselves are pretty underwhelming. I found that only one or two really made a difference in my playthrough, and ultimately, I probably could have gotten through the entire game by just ignoring the perk system altogether. And my last complaint, as much as I enjoyed the ride that was the Atomfall story, I'm not sure that it landed the ship as effectively as it could have. The conclusion felt pretty underwhelming to me, but I only saw 2 of the possible endings, so there's a chance that the other possibilities are stronger. I just felt for as much intrigue and mystery as the story built, the payoff I received didn't really feel worth it. But sometimes it's more about the journey than the destination, and I truly enjoyed my journey through Atomfall. If you're looking for a Fallout fix in a bite-sized package, then I wholeheartedly recommend this game. It certainly has its flaws, but it's fun and charming and extremely well polished. And sometimes that's all you need to make a good game.